All right, guys, I'm going to be honest with you. Canada as a country, I feel might just be doomed. It's doomed. And not even might. I think it is doomed. It's doomed. Now, nothing stays doomed forever when it comes to non-living things. Canada's not really a living, breathing human being. It's a country. It's a piece of land. Hopefully, somebody will come in who is good, who is a patriot, who is smart, who is sharp, who is strong, who will come in and fix things. But for now, Canada's doomed. It's doomed. And when I say it's doomed. 2019 does not give any hope to me whatsoever. The choices that we have to choose from in the next election are atrocious. And I'm saying that I feel, I never used to be an advocate for Western separation or Quebec separation. I always used to say that if they did separate, I wouldn't blame the provinces. I'd blame the federal government. They're the ones who made them separate. I always said, even going back during the Quebec years, when Quebec was wanting to separate, I said, hey, you all out there, you English Canucks out there, and let's face it, a lot of it, the English Canucks are not innocent when it comes to the destruction of Canada. We'll get into that. But I always used to say, don't go after the Bloc Québécois. Don't go after the Parti Québécois. Don't go after Lucien Bouchard. Don't go after Levesque. Don't go after Parizeau. Those people are proud, honorable Quebec nationalists who probably could have been Canadian nationalists, but they cannot stand the federal government. They cannot stand the way the federal government likes to take power from the provinces, and yet they instead like to do rubbish. They do all sorts of stupid, crazy, foolish things to the country, and they're saying, "Hey, we aren't gonna be a part of this anymore. We're out of here." I don't blame them. And the same thing goes for people in the West. And now they're talking about leaving, and it's ramping up. And make no mistake about it, if there was a referendum for Alberta and Saskatchewan and Manitoba to leave Canada, I'm telling you, I think that they would leave. They would choose to leave, and they would choose it very quickly. And I'd support them. And I used to not be an advocate for that, but now I am. 100% I am. Because the federal government itself is doomed. It is done. The choices are atrocious. I've never seen anything like this. Now, we can start with the liberals. Now, you guys know my feelings with Justin Atakia and Mac Daddy, son of Satan, woman groping, goof loving, quasi Zionist Trudeau. Y'all know my position with him. He is the son of Satan. He's wicked. He's no good. He's a fool. He's a piece of trash. He comes from a piece of trash. He comes from an in-heap father and a trashy mama from the streets of Vancouver. He's never done a damn thing in his life. He's never had to rely on any paycheck. He's never done any honest work in his life. I mean, he's never even picked up a piece of garbage. He's never done anything. And somehow you Canucks think he's better. And I'm not saying Stephen Harper was perfect, okay? Let's be clear here. Stephen Harper was not a perfect prime minister. I know that I had praise for him in 2015, partly because the alternative was, oh my gosh, holy hell, I better go headlong for this guy before we get somebody who will really tear up the place. But he wasn't perfect. I mean, he was a globalist, Stephen Harper. He was very comfortable with China. He, just like Maxime Bernier, was ready to sell out this country to bad trade deals, which he did on a regular basis with the EU and others. Very bad trade deals. I'm very picky when it comes to trade deals. Um, he was not perfect. But for you Canucks out there, you Canucks, yes, I call you Canucks, you Canucks out there. I mean, that's why I always used to say something is wrong with Canadians. For you Canucks out there to actually say to me and to the country and to the world that this this prince of hell who is a sellout to his country, who is even not just a globalist, but destructive in many different ways, socially and economically, who is a sellout on a scale we have never seen before, who takes every opportunity he can to make sure and rub it in our face to make sure that every other country, every other person is well taken care of before our country. Somebody who has never done an honest day's work, whether it's even pick up garbage or flip burgers or shine shoes or, I mean, even prostitute himself. I mean, for somebody who claims he was a ski board instructor and a drama teacher, and he couldn't even do that properly. And you Canucks say he is better than Stephen Harper with all of his mistakes, who managed to balance the budget, who managed to make our middle class the richest in the world, and when every other country was falling down, being torn to pieces during the 2008 banking crisis, managed to keep this country relatively afloat. He is worse than Justin Pataki and Mac Daddy Trudeau. There's something wrong with Canadians. No society. I mean, there is something in our blood worse than sickle cell, worse than AIDS, worse than H1N1, worse than mad cow disease, worse than anything, cancer, rabies. There is something spiritually and mentally wrong with Canadians for them to actually have the gall to choose Justin, the tacky-headed Mac Daddy Trudeau, over Stephen Harper. I mean, it just baffles my mind. Even Barack Hussein Obama is more qualified to run a nation than Justin. I mean, Boris Johnson was the mayor of London, one of the biggest cities in the world in terms of landmass. Donald Trump ran a business. I mean, Dwight D. Eisenhower was a military. I mean, Bill Clinton was even the bum on the street, for crying out loud, who knows how to manage money, who has no choice, otherwise he'd freeze to death. The bum on the street, the bum on Yonge Street in downtown Toronto is more qualified to be prime minister than Justin the Tacky and Mac Daddy Trudeau. I'm not lying to you, man. I'm not lying. I'm not making this up. I would vote. I would give my recommendation to the homeless man with a bunch of black plastic bags, who smells like he hadn't bathed in 200 million years, sitting there in front of one of the big old banks there on Yonge Street next to Union Station, with some dog drooling from his mouth and some sign that says, "Help me, I need to get to Montreal, give me some money." I'd sooner vote for him than Justin Pataki and Mac Daddy Trudeau. He's more qualified. But you Canucks not only chose the Mac Daddy, you chose him over somebody who really, really, I mean, with all his faults, man, balanced the budget, kept our economy afloat during the worst global economic crisis ever, and created jobs on top of that. So there's something wrong with Canadians. And then there's the Conservatives. Now let's start with the Conservatives. The Conservatives, I don't know what's their problem in this country. I mean, England, America, France, all of those places, they are ready and willing to give their people bold plans, energetic plans, meat on their bones. I mean, even England, which is not a conservative country, I mean, it's a pretty liberal country. I mean, Boris Johnson, who is, I mean, a very, very strong nationalist, I mean, he is now prime minister. I mean, Bolsonaro in Brazil, I'm not saying I'm a big fan of his, but I mean, Brazil is a very liberal country, very, very socially liberal country. And a man like Bolsonaro, he's there. And these people are strong. And the reason why is because the people respect strength, they respect wisdom, they respect superior logic. They don't necessarily respect conservatism. I'm not a conservative, I'm an independent. But they respect people who love their country and who have a plan for their country. But the conservatives in this country, who are supposed to be the most nationalistic, who are supposed to be the most patriotic, they're weak. They're weak. They don't have any good initiatives. They're not bold. They're not strong. They're spineless. They're shinless. They're gutless. They're just jellyfish almost. I mean, Andrew Scheer is a joke. He is a joke. I saw that long before. I don't know how he became leader of the Conservative Party. I'm thinking it's because a bunch of old white folk in the English Canada said they didn't want another Frenchman. Now, I'm going to get to Maxime Bernier in a second, because he's not off the hook either. He's just as bad. But let's stick with Scheer for a minute. I mean, this guy is almost just as unqualified to be prime minister as Justice Attacking Magdalena Trudeau. Really, I mean, okay, he was Speaker of the House, he was, an MP, but other than that, what has he done? I mean, what has he done? I haven't heard about anything. I mean, he's just been in Ottawa his whole life, I'm guessing. What did he do before that? Okay, man, did he mow lawns? Was he a lawyer? Was he a teacher? Did he shine shoes? Was he a bum? Was he a prostitute? What did he do before Ottawa? I don't want to vote for somebody who's been in Ottawa their whole life. I'm tired of this insider politics type of thing. Those people are the worst to run your country. But on top of that, he's weak and he's cowardly, and I would say, especially after the experience I had at Ford Fest, where the progressive conservative goons actually kicked me and my tried to threaten to kick me and my friend out because my friend had a Faith Goldie shirt. I think he would do the same thing. The Conservative Party insiders would do the same exact thing. They are just they remind me of, if he calls himself a conservative, it might as well be Theresa May or Angela Merkel or something like that. Alison Redford, Andrew Scheer, please. You know, I might vote for the conservatives because I think they're the least evil. I actually think they're more evil than the PPC, and I'll tell you why in a few minutes. But I'm not going to be proud of it. And I'm encouraging people to strategically vote. If you're in a very conservative or very liberal area, you have more freedom to vote whatever you want. But if you're in a swing riding, like I'm in a swing riding, you guys better be careful. Because if the Mac Daddy gets in, which I think he's going to win again. It don't even count on it. The polls, the Mac Daddy's going to win again. And if he does, then it just confirms my belief that Canada's doomed. And then you got Maxime Bernier. Maxime Bernier, I don't care what you PPC people have to say. He's a fraud. He's a con man. He's a charlatan. He's pulling the wool right over everybody's eyes. Maxime Bernier, give me a break. I would never vote for the PPC. You couldn't pay me to vote for the PPC. You couldn't pay me to vote for Maxime Bernier. Just because he's talking something about Muslims now that he's some kind of savior, give me a break. You people are too easily led. That's why you're in this problem in the first place. You're very easily led by Andrew Scheer. He became leader of the Conservatives. Now you're being very easily led by Maxime Bernier. I don't give a damn what you so-called conservatives tell me about Maxime Bernier, because you all make poor decisions. You guys don't know how to run anything. You don't know how to win anything. You guys going after Maxime Bernier saying he's this big nationalist. Let me tell you about this nationalist. He wants to sell out our dairy industry and our farming industry to foreign countries, most notably the United States. I mean, think about it. Our farming industry, that determines whether or not Canadians eat or not. You mean to tell me that you actually are going to allow a politician to give the freedom of the power of Canadians being being fed or not fed to foreigners? You think American farmers give a damn about Canadian men, women, and children, and if their bellies are full with food and water and milk? Please give me a break. Anybody who's willing to sell out our farming industry and give the power of whether or not we eat or not to foreigners will never get my vote. And not to mention, he's a globalist, even from back during when he was a cabinet minister, voted for many globalist initiatives during the Harper government. His father was a big UN guy. The fruit didn't fall too far from the tree, and he was bashing people like Kelly Leach and Donald Trump about immigration. So I don't believe anything he says about immigration and the United Nations, because he was bashing the people who wanted to do something about it, saying that was racist, it was not inclusive, all sorts of junk like that. He's a charlatan, he's a fraud. And then the NDP and the Greens, well, they're just naive. Their heart is in the good place, but they're too naive. The plans that they have to fix the problems that they want to fix would make the problems actually worse. They don't know it, they're just naive. So, long story short, Canada's doomed. Our choices are no good. The best we can hope for is that the provincial leaders, and let's be clear, provincial governments, the charter is on the provincial government side. They have the power to tell the federal government F you. And maybe the best plan is to just separate from this whole damn thing. We'll see what happens. For now, this is